'Tis a fine foggy night tonight, and I doubt if anyone has ever told you of the marvelous fogs we have in Aberdeen.
Eugene.
Bakersfield.
Los Angeles.
San Francisco.
He wasn't giving me my props in Oaktown.
Portland.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles de California.
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
You gotta find your Irvine.
Irvine?
Hanford.
Eugene.
Seattle.
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 Sacramento.
Fresno.
We're going to Vancouver.
Modesto, California. San Diego.
Gina.
You know, there might be an opening for a manager in Visalia next spring.
Yakima, right?
Vallejo, California, the V.
All right, 1, 2. Welcome to the West Coast Sojourn podcast. My name is Lev Anderson. My co-host is
Donnell Alexander.
And thank you for joining us today. We've got a special conversation about the upcoming NBA season and wherever else that might lead us. Joining us again, returning champion from Panama, Mike Weiss, journalist, longtime beat writer for covering the NBA. And then Chris Jenkins, a journalist, documentarian, who's done a lot of sports-related coverage and projects. We're very happy to have him join us from, are you in D.C. or are you in New York?
I'm in D.C.
In D.C., the
Under
nation's
occupation.
capital. Under occupation. Well, just like us here in Portland, war-ravaged Portland.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, Chris, I wanted to bring up something because we're on this text thread. I don't know if you guys know. I think I might have mentioned it to Lev, but Chris and I are on this text thread that I mostly read now because it's fucking hilarious. But you had a conversation. No, you pointed to a conversation, All the Smoke with Spencer Haywood.
That's right.
That was fascinating.
Fascinating podcast.
What'd you like about it? Can you tell these guys and everyone
Sure.
else who might be listening what was so great about that conversation?
Well, everybody knows about All the Smoke podcast. Hosted by Steven Jackson, and those guys are remarkable at pulling out really interesting conversations with people that either you think they're going to talk to, or guys that just sort of came out of nowhere and you've forgotten about, but are legends because they have the access to just about everybody they want. And so I guess their latest one is on Spencer Haywood, the NBA great, and who, probably deserves billions of dollars worth of commissions for being the first guy to break through and go straight from high school to the NBA, not have to play in college largely, and I had a court case about it. And what was so remarkable about him was, first of all, how at peace he was, I think, with his life. I mean, that's what to answer your question, Donnell, about some of his sort of attitude about what he was able to accomplish over the years. I mean, we had drug issues. If anybody saw Winning Time, there was a little snippet about, his drug problems on the 1979-1980 Lakers. Who obviously, as many people probably know, won the championship, but Wood, as Kareem and Magic Johnson used to call him, had some very high-profile drug issues that year. He's an amazing player. Obviously, he's an NBA Hall of Famer, but I think he's most, revered now for the stance that he took to go in straight into the NBA under what then became the hardship rule. So Julius Erving later would follow through that path of basically the ABA essentially saying, look, this guy was a sharecropper. His parents are sharecroppers. He's destitute, essentially. You've got to let him in. Like, this is a financial situation for him. And how articulate he was about his experience, how incredibly at peace, like I mentioned earlier, how at peace he was with his experience and what he accomplished, and how not bitter he was about having a career that was somewhat truncated by some of his own issues, but also how like a lot of guys back in the day have been forgotten about. I mean, I think he's there with Kurt Flood and to some degree Muhammad Ali for being path breakers in changing an entire industry because of his courage. So that's what I took from his point of view and his attitude about his life. I mean, I was just incredibly happy for him almost that he had such a peaceful attitude about his life. That's what I took from it.
Yeah, and he was pushing 80. Just as you talked there, I realized that in Winning Time, Spencer Haywood was played by Wood Harris, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And they called him Wood. That's a lot of wood,
Yeah,
right
that
there.
is
Wow.
yeah.
And I don't mean to imply anything in transition, but he was dating Iman. I mean, he was married to
Iman.
Iman. I forgot before David
Married
Bowie.
to Iman, has a daughter with Iman.
None. It was
Yeah, I mean, he is truly a, look, I mean, there have been many greats over the last 65 years and, and remarkable players and men who have played that sport. But, just listening to him talk about because it wasn't necessarily a political stance. He was making a human stance. Like, look, like, I have the right to, make my own decisions, I do not have to go through this system. In the same way we think about Ali saying, what does he say famously? Viet Cong never called me. And, like it was a very basic thing. Like, it's a very practical sort of assessment that Ali was, allegedly made about why he wasn't going to go fight in a war. And yes, it became political. And for Hayward, it became political. But in a lot of ways, it's a very bottom line, humanistic decision he was making for for his own, sense of humanity. So I appreciated that. There's a very good story also about he was there in 1968 in Mexico City when with the Black Power salute from Tommy for Tommy, and he has a nice sort of perspective on that I'll let our listeners go out and listen to themselves, because I've actually never heard like a third dimension sort of analysis, like observation about that decision. Someone who was there before it happened. And John Carlos apparently was just, railing, trying to educate all the young brothers about what they're about to do. So it's just very interesting. So a really good conversation if anyone wants to check it out.
Does Ed O'Banion fit in that same class?
What's that?
Does Ed O'Banion fit in that same class of these kind of,
he does.
guys that pushed for change?
He does. I mean, where we are now, now with NIL and, people being, essentially the guys being able to profit off their likeness in ways in which they couldn't even 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, for our people who don't follow basketball that deeply, can one of you explain exactly the Ed O'Banion decision and why it's such a milestone?
Well, was Ed O'Banion sued the NCAA maybe, right? And because was it that they used his likeness in the video game? And this was at a time when college players didn't have the NIL, the ability to get paid for their bodies, their appearances as part of
the jersey sales. Yeah,
jersey sales. Yeah,
playing, being represented on a video game, they had no they got no financial they profit from the companies, schools and such. I mean, Mike, you probably know lots about this, but I mean, I think Ed O'Banion would be a great person to put into that tradition in his own way.
Better player than Ed O'Banion would have been the main plaintiff, but oh well. No, I just remember back in the day, like Chris Webber saying, like, how are those Michigan number 4 jerseys selling off the racks for $75 and I don't see a cent? And and it you realize that these guys, okay, but it's like unpaid internships. That's what playing in college was. And so, yeah, now it's next.
Hey, I promise people we are going to get to like MVP talk and who's going to win the West, and because it will be the West winning the whole thing. But I wanted to ask one kind of political question because I'm dealing with it in my newsletter, and I realized talking to Lev, he has a corollary version, and I can't think of two better persons to ask this to. But I have a hard time rooting for the Dodgers right now because their ownership has a stake in Palantir and a little bit in the private prison industry, and it's obviously scoots over to the Lakers because the Lakers are going to have that same ownership group. Why should I not feel bad about rooting for the Lakers, aside from all the other reasons?
Realize that, now.
I mean, you can tell me why. You have this
There's lots of reasons.
One of the few owners I actually had a relationship with was Jeannie, and where I could like call her and talk to her about almost anything. Maybe not so much that she married Jay Moore, but I felt like at some point, in fact, if I really wanted to, I could have hit it. No, I'm kidding. That's not true.
Really?
No, but no, I am. But she was like, it was weird. She would just go on my radio show, and then I think we bonded over dogs. Like I wrote a dog
You're
story
not
for the
kidding.
Washington Post where my dog fell through the ice, and we almost ended up both dying. But anyway, she like sent me a message, and then she was talking about her dog, and she was always good to me when her and Phil were going out. She would just tell, she
Great
was just
story.
honest. But anyway, I was bummed when I was sort of like, yeah, the Bus family's owned that family franchise. I've been the main governorship, the owners of the whole thing. So I think that part is weird. And I think, yeah, if you got a problem with what they're doing business wise, I mean, shoot, it's hard for me to subscribe to the Washington Post anymore with Bezos. So I don't, I don't have any. I don't know why you wouldn't feel weird about rooting for him anyway.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
almost 50-year Yankees fan. All right. And so, growing up in Harlem and the whole thing. And so, you always have to do a little mental trick, as you begin to get older and older and more political as you get older, when going back to your sports teams and figuring out, how am I going to continue to do this? I mean, for as much as we've forgotten who George Steinbrenner was, those of us who live in New York, and as you get older, realize that, he was a big fan of Richard Nixon, so, political contributor, and then all the things he did to Dave Winfield were unconscionable in a lot of ways, but that didn't stop me from, rooting for the Yankees up until, by the way, a couple weeks ago when they decided to memorialize and offer a tribute to a right-wing political, you know,
Huh.
and I've had to
Mr.
step back.
Charlie.
That was it for me. It's it
What?
for me. It for me.
Song.
I
What did
could
it?
not believe what and look, like, it was the day of, right? So it's not like they got pressure. Maybe they get pressure. I don't know, but it was the day of. It was like a couple of hours afterwards. So at some point, you start drawing lines, when the wool is sort of pulled off about who's running some of these organizations. And look, it's always been hard, right? Like, I mean, look, I'm a Knicks fan. I mean, who's our owner? I mean, like, I mean, Mike, I'm sure you got stories galore. So we won't ask you that, we're in a public sphere here, mixed company, so the whole thing, but, you start making decisions about these sorts of things, and everyone's got their line, but, sometimes you gotta draw it, so it's a personal decision, but it's also a political one, D, like, so you're asking a question, what should stop you from, rooting for the it sounds
Right.
like you've already made a decision to me. It sounds like
Well, it also, I think what's interesting, sorry to jump in, but I think what's interesting too is I think sports teams now have less connection to the local communities. Mike was talking about the Bus family not being involved with the Lakers anymore, and now it's like almost like this corporate conglomeration, because there's so much money involved. You have these outside billionaires coming in and buying these teams, and this guy who's buying the Blazers up here in Portland, apparently he made some money off, predatory lending, which is totally against like, the ethos of Portland politics and such. But, like, so there's a little point, like, Chris was suggesting kind of put that aside a little bit. But I just think in general, like, I think these sports teams are starting to lose a little bit of that local connection to the communities. And I mean, it seems by the nature of big money, that's just going to happen. This is America. That's what happens. It's kind of naive to think that, these teams are part of our communities, but, maybe with the internet too, it just makes it so, you can be a fan of some other city's team and it's not, so much a local thing anymore.
Great
Give a
point.
towel. Oh, Magic's into the Dodgers, baby. Magic's into the Lakers. I can't hate them. Yeah, right.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah.
It's
You
true.
know, I
I mean,
I
here with the Commanders, I mean, they brought him in for the exact same reason.
Oh, right.
hmm. I guess I'm one of the justifications that I've seen online is that if you scratch beneath the surface of any owner, you're going to find a whole bunch of dirt. You don't get to be a billionaire without doing a bunch of dirt. Who's the least reprehensible owner in all of sports?
You're really
I
putting us
mean,
on the spot now.
Can I throw in the Green Bay Packers since they're community owned,
Sure.
more or less?
he could still be annoying on some of these shows. He seems pretty authentic. And so I don't, I think, I mean, now Mark Cuban sold to a casino owner and her family in Vegas who are they bankroll Trump. So it just goes to show you everybody's trying to get on the dollar. It doesn't matter who you sell to. The league is interested in welcoming people with deep pockets, irrespective of their politics. And I know Adam Silver is probably one of the most liberal guys I know. His wife is major abortion rights supporter. In fact, she worked, I think, for a big abortion rights company at some point, and she can't deal with the fact that Utah had some law, and like she almost wanted the Jazz to but she couldn't go there. But Adam's the same way. He's running a what do you call it? He's running a multi-billion-dollar operation. He's got to look out for he's got to look out for his owners before he looks out for his own politics.
The cartel.
I don't tend to think that it's just a sports thing. I was going to put this item in my newsletter, but I found some places where Rob Reiner spoke out. But he's been doing this whole tour for the Spinal Tap revisit, and he's not talking about Trump a whole lot. So this is Rob Reiner, Mr. Democratic Party. He could be using his platform to make an impact, and he's like, you know what? I got to get paid. Yet another way where capitalism's corrosive. We should talk some hoops, right? Is there a story? And I'll start with you, basketball people with the East Coast frame of reference. Is there a story that we really should be thinking about this season? One that's got you excited beyond, who's going to win the title?
You could see someone coming out of
Mike, please.
I want to say this could be that season. And part of it is because Jason Tatum is not going to play for a long time. Tyrese Halliburton is not going to play for a long time. The representative of the NBA Finals and the last team standing, those two teams, Cleveland and the Knicks are probably the prohibitive favorites coming out of the East. And like if Cleveland won a title without LeBron James and Donovan Mitchell instead, or the Knicks won their first title since '73, that's a monster story, and that's actually possible. I know the West is still loaded, and then I still look at people think LeBron's done. Well, if he's not completely done, this is a year that you could say he could sneak through because of some of the injuries, and so. So that to me, I really can't say this team is going, like the Oklahoma City Thunder is going to repeat. I can't say that. I just don't know. That would be out of the box. I would say, like, I really don't know who's going to win the championship. And I can say it's three teams. It's one of three teams. And I could say that there's probably six now that I could see any of them lifting the trophy at the end of the season, which never happens in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. A couple of things. I mean, I want to piggyback off something Mike just said in a second, but just to answer the original question, I'm actually really curious about Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
And this is why. So they clearly had, a season from hell last year. Clearly, playoff P did his usual disappearing act before the playoffs, regular season, right? Joel, who, I know why a lot of people don't like Joel Embiid. I'm still rooting for the brother to get over the hump. I really like his game. I like, I like his personality. I think he's fun. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, last year sort of popping off, at the beginning of the season was problematic. I get it. but generally speaking, I root for Joel Embiid. But so last year was such an abysmal sort of operation for them. It just feels like, everyone, there's an opportunity there for them to sort of get themselves together and finally have playoff P, stay healthy, Embiid stay healthy, Maxey, sort of continue to rise. They've got this new kid. They just VJ, whose last name escapes me, on with the third pick. Like, he seems like a beast. Like, it feels like this might be a breakthrough year for them because things went so badly last year. Now that's based clearly on sort of having watched the league for 45 years and knowing how sometimes these things just break in ways in which you don't expect. So there's that piece of it. But I'm a Knicks guy. I think it's because so much of these sort of conversations these days go on text threads, and I'm on 7 text threads with 14 different people and the whole thing. But it just feels like all the Knicks fans I know are like, look, man, if we can't do it this year, with a hole in, like Mike said, with Tatum out, with Halliburton out, as we know, the league is littered. Champions are littered on the path of other teams having bad luck throughout the NBA. Whether it's in a game or in a season. The Knicks and their ability to be able to, play differently, match where the league is now, I think is the major story coming out of the East. And by the way, I'd say, having been a Yankees fan for very long, I'm hoping that Mike Brown is the 1996 Joe Torre. Mike will appreciate the reference. That everybody was hating on the Yankees for firing Buck Showalter at the end of 1995 season and hiring Joe Torre, who I think the New York, no, it was the Post or the Daily News that winter called him Clueless Joe when he was hired by the Yankees just before the 1996 season, and the rest is history. We're all hoping that Mike Brown, who was vilified, for, maybe not universally vilified by everybody for being hired, but certainly the firing of Tibbs, at that point was roundly criticized. We're all hoping that in terms of the way in which sports fans think, everything runs in patterns, what we thought about 30 years ago, it's going to happen again. The whole thing, that's the only way we can give ourselves solace and make ourselves, sort of sleep at night. I'm hoping that is the repeat in New York that we have this year, that Mike Brown is the 1996 Joe Torre.
Retread. Like, he's a retread. And that's exactly what they're saying about Mike Brown. Retread. He's had like 3 or 4 jobs. Why couldn't he get this team over the hump? Why couldn't he do anything in Sacramento? And now he's like, all of a sudden, he's the Knicks coach. You know what? This is a very good analogy. If that came to pass, I wouldn't be unhappy. And he's a real good dude, too, like Torrey. Tremendous guy.
Seems like it.
Lev, do you have a storyline you're looking forward to?
Well, I think, along the lines of, these injured players that are out, I wonder, the NBA for so long has been a superstar driven league. And it seems like, especially with OKC last year, I mean, SGA is a great player, but I don't know that I guess he's a superstar, but the key to OKC was their depth. And you've got the thing going now in the NBA with the CBA where it's very top, you have like your elite and then your lower class and the middle class NBA players are getting squeezed out less, and at least in terms of money they're making. And I just wonder if it's starting to swing back the other way where depth is going to become more important than having superstars, because look, if Luka misses 25 games or something this year, the Lakers might, get like the play-in again and have a really hard time getting as far as they want to. Or look what happened to Boston the minute Tatum went down. They just sucked. So I wonder, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to is like, are these teams, like, I think like if Dallas gets Kyrie back and, not too late in the season, they might be pretty good because they're pretty, sound roster otherwise. I don't know. Denver is one of those teams too that has depth, I think, beyond just like the 1 or 2 stars, because like if Embiid goes down again, Philly's chances are, not that great. I don't.
He's
Maybe the
probably out
first
for the
couple months of the
spring.
season. I don't know.
I think he got injured at the end of January, 2025. So I think he's out till certainly maybe All-Star break 2020. This coming All-Star break
Wow.
2026. So I
I
would
didn't know.
imagine somewhere there. And I doubt that they push him back because Kyrie's not a young. He's 30. Will be by that point 34. 33 going on 34. So he's not the young Kyrie we all remember.
Do you think they should be trying to build around Cooper Flag and get rid of Cooper Flag and Lively, and maybe try to get rid of why am I thinking of why can't I think of Street Clothes' actual name? You don't buy that. I see the look on your face, Chris. You're not buying that one.
Is that what you call him, Street Clothes, after
Anthony
he left the
Davis,
Lakers?
yeah. I think that was such an unfair nickname, but it sticks so well.
Like why is it Embiid Street Clothes? I mean, you could pick any guy. Somehow Anthony Davis got picked Street Clothes. Like, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to talk about the Kawhi Leonard situation.
Yeah.
Speaking of owners and the whole thing, but no, I think they have a veteran team and a solid team. Particularly when Kyrie gets back, they can let Flag develop in his own time. Jason Kidd, I imagine will do just that. And by the time Kyrie gets back, I think they have a remarkably good chance to make a run. I mean, I think they've I mean, I don't know if we want to get into conspiracy theories about how they got the first pick. I mean, that was another. You want to talk about storylines?
I do want to say this about Dallas, about the GM who so famously got shat on for making that trade last year, and it was a one-sided trade. But Nico, thank you, Nico. I have to say this about Nico and the trade. Nobody force-fed Luka barbecue and beer. He gets all these plaudits for changing his body and all that, but ain't nobody force-fed that nigga, man. My kids were in Dallas. They were fat as fuck in Dallas, and they should call Luka. He was fucking fat. And Chris, you said something that made me want to steer this conversation. Lev, Mike, you can say it, but Chris, you made me think about it because your analysis of Philadelphia and New York was, it's from fandom. And we're in the space now where Stephen A. Smith is taken seriously as a political person by a lot of people, way too many people. I feel like there's a disqualification in the sense that, I think he's a huckster on a certain level, but it's fandom. It's not real analysis when you talk about sports journalism. There's always a fig leaf of objectivity, but people are rooting, Do you agree with me on this?
Yeah.
You're rooting for your team. You're rooting for candidates. Your analysis isn't pure. I mean, MSNBC is rooting, but for God's sakes, this idea where we're about to elevate Stephen Smith am I the only person who's disconcerted here?
Like, I've known the dude since so long, and I was always amused by him, like, in a funny way.
You get 10% of the
and I
vote.
know how hard he works, and this is going to sound stupid, but I don't really blame him. I'm happy for him. I'm like, it just goes to show you, like, the people that gave him $100 million, they wanted the angry black dude that just went off on people instead of like a real reporter who happened to be black. It's sort of like that was their way of saying, oh yeah, we got this dude yelling at everybody. We got this dude. Look, man, they could have had David Aldridge for half the money. and he's a great reporter. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, to me, that's what ESPN wanted. They wanted the caricature, and Stephen A. has lived up to it. And so I can't hate on him, except if he actually runs for president. Then I'm going to be like, come on, man, I know you. You're just not that deep on certain issues. Right.
What is the what does the E in ESPN stand for, number one? And number two, it's not so much fandom. It's punditry versus journalism, right? Like, and look, Stephen A. Smith was a reporter at one point, it's from all, and from from what people have told me over the years, he was a pretty good reporter. He was at the Philadelphia Inquirer. He's at a major newspaper. He develops sources. He knows how to do that. But if you want to sort of intersect where we are as it relates to political versus sports journalism or political journalism and sports journalism. It's based on punditry more than anything, at least in terms of what we see every day. But First Take is largely, I mean, the guys that, and the women and men who sit with Stephen A, generally speaking, have not been reporters, are not reporters. And so it's all opinion based. It's not based on conversation. It's not actually on real sort of sourcing, which is not, by the way, very entertaining. Right? So that's the piece of it that I think, but we know why that is. I mean, the internet culture, has taken over all kinds of, journalistic culture, which is about outrage machine and so on. And so that's what's driving all of this. Again, because of, the American sort of entertainment, complex that we've created for ourselves over the years. And, but that all drives towards the bottom line dollar, where we started capitalism and, these publicly traded companies. See, now I'm getting to the reporting, and now it's getting boring, right? This is what I'm saying. Like,
Now,
you can tell
Joel
your
Embiid
audience
has been
is gonna glaze
disrespected
over
again.
right now. So there you go. Let's stop right there.
All right.
All right. I'll make everyone happy by staring it into hucksterism even more. LeBron James tomorrow's making a big announcement. Do you think it's something real pertaining to sports, or do you think he's hawking a product? Yeah, I don't know if you've seen
say
it.
product.
The hashtag is what is it? The decision part 2.
Retire after the he's gonna retire after the season.
Yes,
He's gonna make it a big
I love breaking news.
show like Kareem did when everybody gave
I'm
him
saying
rocking
it's
chairs,
breaking-
and he's gonna that. To me, it's
I'm
all
just
about
saying that's breaking-
it's all about the fanfare. That to me, that's got to be it. If it's called the decision too.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Oh my God. See, the thing is that we're recording this on Monday, won't be out till Wednesday, Thursday. I just want you to have to live with your speculation. So Lev and Chris, please tell me what you think is happening tomorrow. You agree with Mike?
I mean, it is probably true. I didn't know that was the hashtag, but I'm really gonna miss LeBron. I mean, we've never had such a great. I'm blowing smoke.
He's
up
from
your ass. I
Portland.
blew- Yeah. Well, LeBron. He is definitely about getting attention, or at least putting himself out there enough to where he's relevant. I guess. Maybe it's more relevancy than attention seeking, but he's earned that, and I hope he does retire because I'm tired of people thinking that the Lakers have a chance as long as he's playing.
I mean, I can't disagree with my co-guests here about what it might be. I hadn't heard this, so what else could it be at this point? It would be surprising though, because didn't he just say 2 weeks ago that he was going to play as long as he loved the process, which made it seem like he was still in it. So it'd be weird for him to say that, and then 2 weeks later, say this if it turns out to be that.
Well, that he's not been playing in the exhibition season just because they call it that preseason. They don't say that anymore. The preseason because he's got a literal pain in his ass. His nerve endings in his ass are about.
Yeah.
Gluteus maximus.
Yeah, I think
that'd be enough to make me think about it. I mean, there's got to be a time when he comes out and goes, you know what, this is ridiculous. I'm fucking 40, whatever. And
at some point.
Maybe this ass
Maybe it
injury
was with Rachel Nichols, where he said, the decision was a mistake, and that was a bad PR move. I should have called the team. It was like this real self-awareness that he realized that a lot of people didn't like him because of that and the way that went down. And so, if this is anything but him saying he's going to retire, he's going to get murdered for the decision too. It's just going to be eviscerated beyond belief. So it better be. I would say that then you could say, okay, that's a tough decision. But let's be honest, Lev. I know you can't stand him, and I know that he does complain as if he's been shot from the rafters every time he gets slapped on the wrist. But let's be honest. Has any player in the history of sports on any team sport level been this good for this long, this consistently good for this long? I can't think of anybody. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. No, I don't hate LeBron. I just like to tease Danelle about the Lakers and such. But maybe the decision is he's gonna lobby the Lakers to trade his son to Cleveland for some more backcourt help. I don't know.
I know I kind of had an order in mind. I know Lev, you have some questions, but Mike, I know you like the Lakers. Tell me what's up with that. You like the Lakers are going to win it?
He's all of a sudden he's not the Pillsbury Doughboy anymore on the court, and he actually is in tremendous shape. I mean, let's be honest. When Luka is good, he's freaking unbelievable, and so I think it all is predicated on if LeBron can give them 25 to 30 good minutes a game, and then they have, like Lev said, the depth of these teams. If they've got enough people, is D'Angelo Russell still with them? No. Austin Reeves. I have no idea what Dalton Connect can do for them anymore. But they've got a decent supporting cast, and so do I think they're going to be the favorite? No, but I could see them. I could see them slipping in if everybody stayed healthy.
Marcus.
I will say one more thing about LeBron too, is that he is like the maybe one of the greatest talent enablers in history, because he's won on so many teams that didn't have a huge cast, or they got better. They played really well with him because he knows how to distribute the ball. He knows when to take over and when to get his teammates going. Like that's why people think Austin Reeves is good. That's why look at like J.R. Smith and a whole history of those guys. Who was that big guy he played with in Cleveland too? That was
Anderson Varejao.
Well, Varejao, but that other guy who was dating one of the Kardashians, maybe, I don't remember, but
but he stuck around.
It's
Tristan Thompson, right? Like he was great with LeBron, but then all of a sudden LeBron was gone, and he was kind of shitty.
And Booby Gibson to the NBA Finals in 2007. To me, that's crazy. That roster that he took to the NBA, even though they got swept by the Spurs, that's insane. If you go down that roster and you go, what? How did that guy end up in the NBA Finals?
I mean, he is great that way.
Speaking of players he's enabled, Lev knows my new nickname for Andre Ayton is, drum roll, Andre Eaton, because he's gonna eat.
Hold on, you guys keep
the. That's what I was thinking about. Was DeAndre Ayton, like he's gonna resurrect his career with LeBron?
Okay.
I mean, 2 points about the Lakers. Number one, their season, unfortunately, does somewhat revolve around DeAndre Eaton. No doubt about it, just to see, whether, he can be a reliable scorer / rebounder and not an overall dolt, number one. So there's that. And number two, perimeter defense. I mean, they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, the guy they got from Sacramento, Jake Brabia.
Yeah.
They think that he's going to be, some kind of perimeter defensive stopper or something like that. But, ultimately it comes down to that. And honestly, back to what I was saying earlier about, the path to success in the NBA very much is dependent upon what happens to your opponents, whether they have, lost a forward, a starter, whatever. We have Houston losing, Fred Van Bleep, as we affectionately called him back in 2019. And
wait, what did you call him?
Fred Van Bleep, because he was killing the Warriors back in 2019. So they've lost a key part of their of how they wanted to play, of their depth. We know Kevin Durant is apt to get hurt. So, but I think Mike may have or maybe Lev, you mentioned the Nuggets. And I think they're going to be slept on for a while, but they, I think, are in that pole position to challenge the Thunder along with I think the Lakers, and depending upon whether the Mavericks can sort of keep it together until Kyrie gets back. I think that's the mix. Thunder, Rockets, Lakers, Nuggets, to me are the ones that will be vying, depending upon how they play, how injuries come into play. That's the and as you guys know, and the Timberwolves actually too. But as you guys know, it comes down to matchups. Like who you match up with, in the playoffs is so much a big part of how far you're going to go. And so so that's my take as least to the Lakers. Aiton, whether he can be a reliable third or fourth option, he can rebound, he can play a little defense, perimeter D, and can they get the inside D, and whether they have any perimeter defense.
Now that you mentioned the Timberwolves, can I just mention that I think what's the coach? His name, Chris Fitch. I feel like he's not a good coach. He they've got a pretty good roster, and I feel like when they were playing against OKC, it just felt like they never had a plan on offense. They couldn't get past the whole team was stuck between the 3-point line and the half court line as Oklahoma's defense pushed them out. And then somebody like Anthony Edwards, who I really like a lot, but I feel like he's got no go-to move, that he's always kind of improvising out there. And Jordan always famously had his spot, whether it was like a turnaround mid-range or whatever. I feel like Anthony doesn't have that in his bag yet, and maybe he'll get it. And go-to moves to score down the crunch, in crunch time, rather than just weaving his way to the basket. I feel like Minnesota is undercoached in a way that is disappointing, really.
They bring him back. Yeah, because Anthony Edwards in my book is top 5 player at this point, and he's and to me he's like, I don't know how old he is. He's not what is he, mid-20s? I growing up still, I feel like his sort of buzzer beating days are ahead of him, and if you put us around, I think the big thing with a guy like that is now's the time to put us around the best supporting cast possible, because you don't want him to be one of those Carmelo Anthony types where he just never has the 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 horsepower around him to get to the finals. I'd hate to see that with. I mean, shoot, if he's in the finals, the ratings are 10 times better.
He's got to figure out a way of doing it consistently in the playoffs against better defenses. I mean, I think famously LeBron James told him, take the next step after the Timberwolves ousted the Lakers last year. And I didn't see it. I didn't see him taking the next step. I mean, they played the Warriors. Obviously, Steph was out, so I'm not sure how much of a test that was. But I agree with everybody that he's got the talent, and he seems like he's got the killer instinct in there. Like as part of his personality. But that consistency, and you make a great point about a go-to move and maturity. Look, I'm clearly not of an internet generation, so this is going to sound like, get off my lawn kind of like old guy over 50 talking, but I can't help but look at the maturity of these guys when they're not playing as to see like whether they're really ready to take the next step. I mean, this thing he was doing with Kevin Durant, and, it feels like there's a little bit of like, young boy, as the young kid saying YN in him, that I'm looking for him to grow out of that, to go to that real next level. And I'm willing to be disproved that my little observation, I probably spend too much time on social media anyway. Well, I know about this, but I'd like to see these guys like, represent themselves in a certain way. So, and that I think will feed into how they represent themselves on the court. But that's an old guy talking. So,
yeah, I could sound like the old white guy. Remember Donnell and just kill Spreewell back in the day?
Zion.
Oh, he's a young brother with dreadlocks. Get him off the court. No. But I do think there's something to be said for, like you have a knucklehead grace period, and then it's sort of like you got to grow out of it. You know, it's just like if you can't be the selfish dude because you got other people you know on the payroll, and you don't want to screw up your season.
They were braids, not dreadlocks, and you and I did go at it quite a bit back back in that season. That season, yeah, the Larry Brown 4-point play. I remember that locker room.
Larry Johnson. Larry
Larry, what did I
Johnson.
say? Larry Johnson. What did I
You
say?
said Larry Brown.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the Pacific Division. I know we're pretty West heavy. I feel like all our West Coast representation, East Coast representation, got taken care of with the Knicks because we're all low key Knicks fans, except for you, Lev, and we'll
I don't
never
mind the Knicks.
forgive you.
I root for the Knicks on the East.
All right. Who's the next? Who's this season's Indiana Pacers? Is there one?
Orlando.
Really? That are they too close already? Why do you like them?
Well, last year they were hurt, so it's hard to, fault them for that. But I just think that that young coach down there, whose name escapes me, I think he's really smart. And picking up my guy from Memphis, number 20, Desmond Bain.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love Desmond Bain. Just full disclosure, love Desmond Bain. I think he's a really smart player. I think I paid a little bit of attention to him when he was at TCU. I just think that he's a tough kid who is smart, shoots really well from three. Obviously, going to spread the floor nicely for Pau Machero. I mean, I just with Franz and the Wagner brothers. More, I mean, the whole thing. I just think they have a nice team, and I think they could. I'm not saying that they're going to beat the Knicks now. I mean, it's not crazy, but I do think that I think that the addition of Bain with playoff experience and being a smart, selfless player gives him an opportunity to make some noise.
So, Chris, we'll get you down. You named your Western Conference team, so your Eastern Conference teams, I gather, might be Philly, New York, Orlando.
Well, let me be very clear about what I said about Philly. I'm not saying what I'm saying about Philly is I'm curious about them because I think that they had one of those years that sometimes happen in sports where everything goes wrong. So I'm curious about them because if everyone stays healthy and they have this new influx of youthful energy, I think they're going to be interesting and they shouldn't be written off. I think people have forgotten about them because everyone's down on PG-13, Paul George. Although now he's PG-8, I guess.
Yeah.
And Embiid, everyone's down on Embiid because he always gets hurt and he could be a little, bit of a, whiner. So I think, I'm interested in to see how they turn out because of that. I think Cleveland's still going to be good. I think Orlando's a sleeper team that can, certainly get as far as the conference finals, depending upon how it all breaks. And I think the Knicks are going to be really, really good. Although I think they're going to struggle in the beginning, just as Mike Brown gets them to play differently, and he's going to try to pick up the pace and get and Jalen Brunson's going to have to figure out to play a little bit differently. But they got a deep bench, and I think they got a real shot. So that's my analysis on the East.
Kinda like the Pistons, believe it or not. They just look good in the playoffs against the Knicks. I'm not saying that, they were gonna beat them, but I think they went 6 games, and they were all close games, and God, who's the sort of, young guy that's all does everything, Chris, for the Pistons? It's Yes. Cade Cunningham. Yeah, he's a special player. And look, and Bernie Bickerstaff's son is a heck of a coach. He's a very good coach. And so
Cade.
I don't know. I think the Pistons, I don't know if they'll
Yeah.
be there at the end, but I could see them being in the final four. And then after that, I like the Knicks. I like the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I hate to piggyback on what Chris said, but I'll name drop for a minute. Like I'm in Panama now because my wife works down here for the U.S. government, and Charles Barkley shows up like out of nowhere. It was like crazy. He's he and someone sends me a selfie, and I said, "You go to the States?" He goes, no, Barkley's here. So, as anybody that's covered Barkley knows, he's the best guy in the world. So I had an old number for him. I texted him. I said, "Hey, look, if you got 5 minutes," and I asked, "What are you doing in Panama?" And he says, "I'm getting stem cells." He's getting, he's taking these stem cells. I guess Elon Musk comes down here and gets them. George Kittles for the nine, all these guys. It's like a big thing. Stem cells is like the new thing, and instead of surgery or PT, and so at any rate, I can't afford them, but so I said, "Hey, I'd love my son to meet," and so I don't hear from him for a day. I'm driving to, my stupid minivan to pick up some groceries the other night, and he calls back and he goes, "Yo, man, come meet us at the sports bar at the hotel." So, I go by my son. He's 15. I'm like, "Oliver, do you want to go eat dinner with Charles Barkley?" His jaw hits the floor. Next thing 30 minutes later, we're at the sports bar. Barkley's just freaking holding court. He's the best. He's giving my son shit about, you better use your left hand, you better hit the books or I'll beat your ass. It was great. It's like, for one thing for me to say that, it's another thing for Chuck. But at the end of it, he's like, the guy who turned him on these stem cells was, God dang it, Jeff Pritchard, the general manager for the Pacers, and he was down there with them. And like Barkley's just telling me, he goes, "Look, man, you're going to have a hard time without Tyree." He goes, "Yeah, I know. He goes, "I think Philly's going to do it this year." And he goes, "I know I'm crazy. I sound crazy, but Philly's going to do it this year." And he goes, I have a feeling about them. If they stay healthy, and New York and Cleveland isn't there. Like, I'm going, Barkley's going all in on Philly. And so, so I think, Chuck's wrong about a lot of things, but I'm gonna follow his lead, and Chris's on Philly, and I'll say I can see Philly being part of the Final Four, and but I do see the Cleveland and New York coming out, and because I just think they'll be healthy, and I think the Knicks are. Jalen Brunson might be my favorite player in the whole league right now. I just, it's still one of the craziest things in the world that, and I know we've talked about this, Danelle, but all the years I covered the Knicks, and seeing all those kids players on the side, little John Starks and Patrick Ewing Jr. and Greg Anthony's kid, and like, I'm going, these guys, you're going to tell me Rick Brunson's kid is going to be the best player in franchise history since Patrick Ewing? And it's like, it's still amazing to me, his size, but his will, man, he wills that team, and he's just, I don't know, I just love watching him, and so
Yeah.
I'm all in on the Knicks. Yes. Yeah, I think too.
Yeah. I mean, I just think
this punditry fandom line just totally blurred.
Who you got?
I feel like I have an opportunity to be but as you guys know, you don't end up rooting for teams as much when you cover the league as you do players you like and guys that you really enjoy. Like I still root for the Warriors because Steph is one of the best dudes ever, and I was bummed when Clay left, Clay Thompson, because he was such a good dude. And so I like that team. I don't think they're going to be there at the end this year, but you end up liking guys that you cover them and you're sort of like, okay, or old people, anybody that old I like, Sorry.
Well, that's the thing. I'm going to let you get your four in, but I don't know if you need to think about them because we got to talk about the Warriors. I was fascinated by the Warriors last year, and now they're super old. They started the season very old last year, picked up Jimmy Butler, got really old, and now they've got Al Horford, so they're fucking ancient. Are they going to hold up? Are they going to hold up?
No.
Lev?
No.
If they can trade Kuminga for a pick or something, I mean, a good player, more serviceable player.
All right. So full disclosure here, I'm a big LeBron guy. All right. Big LeBron guy. I did not fully disclose that when there was a conversation going on about LeBron James earlier. I was letting you guys just, do your thing. Huge LeBron guy. I was on one side of the Warriors LeBron, clashing from 2015 to 2018. So I'm not the most objective person in the world, I will admit. However, I do appreciate the genius of Steph. I was amazed by Klay Thompson's 37-point quarter, whatever that was, against the Oklahoma Thunder in 2016, whatever that was, just shooting the lights out. I was like, what is going on here? But I just don't see, so Jimmy Butler's, and I'm a big Jimmy Butler guy. I love Jimmy Butler. Like, love the guy, but I just on the old guy factor, I don't see how they hold up with all of the youth that's coming through the West, number one. They didn't get a fair shot last year because Steph got hurt. I've been curious to see whether they could have stood up against the Timberwolves. And they did a nice job against the Rockets. But I just, you can just see Jimmy Butler getting disgruntled about something. You could see, you could just, the wheels start, Draymond, just sort of the wheels falling off a little bit on his game, which is, really sort of degenerated over the last, that's the wrong word, devolved, over the last several years, just on the court. I just don't think they have the horses, to really be in the mix, with some of the younger teams, that are, and talented teams, how are they going to deal with Jokic? How are they going to deal with that? How are they going to deal with, the perimeter, like, sort of scoring of the Rockets? I just don't see it. So
I think they're one of the deepest teams in the league. And I'm not rooting, but I'm saying, like, imagine those four guys play their career lows in minutes per game. And
who's going to play for them? Who? Kuminga and
no, not Kuminga. Kuminga should be playing his most minutes, I think.
Oh, I see.
But he might be gone. But they've got a lot of dudes on that bench.
Low minutes, and they actually have something left for the play. I mean, it's not. Look, it's not out of the question. Steve Kerr. I always thought he was just a. I always liked Steve, but I was like, oh, okay. You were gifted a great team that was going to compete for many championships over the years. Now, he's also shown some mettle as a coach, and so I got to think that he's going to find a way to make that team win. I just don't know, how do you win at that level? Lev, real quick, do the Blazers have anything other than Lillard? That's true.
Well, they got Drew Holiday. I don't know. The young guys haven't quite developed yet. I think they're gonna make progress this year. I don't know that they'll make the playoffs, but I think you're looking at the following years when they're going to do better. I don't know what's going to happen with the new ownership. I don't know if they're going to keep Chauncey Billups as coach or the front office. There might be some changes.
I haven't seen the young guys develop, though. I mean, is Shaedon Sharpe?
Shaedon Sharpe is. So word out of training camp from Drew Holiday is that Shaedon Sharpe is the man right now.
Okay.
Like even Drew was having a hard time guarding him in camp.
Okay.
But
what about Scoot?
And
I love it.
Yeah.
Klingman's
so Shaedon Sharpe, Scoot is, unfortunately, he always gets these injuries at the beginning of the season, then it feels like he's catching up the rest of the time.
Yeah,
I don't know if Scoot's the future point guard for this team. Nobody really knows. He's like, he seems all there. He puts in the effort. He's capable physically. His jump shot is supposedly improving, but I don't know. It just seems like he's kind of like the Arch Manning or something, like it seems like the pieces are all there, but he hasn't put it together yet. But he might still. He's got Drew and Dame in his ears now. And Chauncey Billups. I mean, if there was ever like a situation for a point guard to develop, you would think that would be it. And then Toumani Camara.
Yes,
he's like my favorite player, and I wouldn't be like his favorite player is Scottie Pippen, and I wouldn't be surprised if he starts elevating his offensive game and starts to look more and more like a Scottie Pippen light player, because he's definitely got the defensive chops. He takes pride in that, and he was the best 3-point shooter for the team last year, percentage wise. And if he can just improve his handle and get to the basket and score a little more frequently, then he could be most improved player or something. I mean, he's already getting attention, but I like him a lot.
Who's the best player on the Blazers?
Oh, Dame Lillard still
Lillard when he's healthy, I guess.
No,
I mean,
that's over. He's never
Right.
going to be the best player
He
on
might
any
be.
team ever again. I do too. That's what I'm talking about. This is what I was saying about fucking Stephen A. Smith. Rooting and analysis are not together. They cannot be together. No, I
think
Dame.
if Dame comes back and he has his legs and he can shoot his J, I mean,
He's never
Dame has
playing
always
more
been
than 30
kind of
minutes a game
underrated.
again. He's never playing more than 30 minutes a game.
But he's going to be out all year, though, right? So
Yeah. So I mean, I'm talking about next year. Like if he,
he's going to be a year older.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
he'll be older, but it'll be a little less mileage. Like